A major legal back and forth over President Trump's use of California's National Guard. An appeals court just paused a previous ruling that required Trump to return control of the National Guard to California. That means that for now, Trump can keep those troops there. The ruling comes as the third night of curfew is underway right now in downtown LA. CNN's Nick Watt is live on the ground. Nick, is the curfew working? What have you seen from protesters tonight?
Oh, yes, the curfew is working. Ever since it kicked in, we've just seen convoys of LAPD vehicles, sirens blaring, driving around the curfew zone. You can hear the helicopters above. You know, even before the curfew, I've got to say there were many more law enforcement than there were protesters. They have found some people to arrest, though. You can see over here, they've been arresting some people, loading them onto that paddy wagon to take away. There was a bit of action this afternoon, actually, just after the first ruling came down that Trump could not keep the National Guard here. We actually noticed the National Guard sort of melted away from outside that federal detention center, presumably inside. Left outside were DHS police officers who did make a couple of forays into the crowd after some things were thrown at them. They came out, grabbed a couple of people, dragged them inside. That was about the extent of it. Other than that, pretty peaceful day of protest, to be honest. Loud, very loud, but that was the only little sort of flare-up, dust-up that we've seen. So right now, yeah, this area, this little slice of downtown that has been the focus of the protests, it is locked down for a third night. The curfew is working. There's not going to be any trouble inside this zone. Now, who knows whether protesters have moved outside the zone? We don't know that. But inside this curfew zone, Laura, it is locked down for a third night. Back to you.
Nick Watt, thank you so much for your reporting. Joining me now is former U.S. Attorney and host of the Talking Feds podcast, Harry Litman. Harry, good to see you. What is your reaction tonight to the Ninth Circuit now pausing the ruling?
A totally dizzying day in the courts, Laura. And what has just happened is basically after all this maneuvering, we're back to where we started. So the district court judge, Judge Chuck Breyer, made a very quick schedule and then had a hearing, went into chambers and pounded out a 36-page opinion that says Trump is wrong for two reasons. There isn't a rebellion, and it's to judges to say, and you're trenching on the state police power. Very definitive, thorough, meticulous opinion. Then he paused it for a day and a half so that the administration could appeal. They immediately did, and just really before we came on air, a sort of motions panel in the Ninth Circuit. We know there are two Trump appointees, CNN has reported, but we don't otherwise know, has said administrative stay. All that means is we're going to put it on hold until we think about it and hear about it next Tuesday in a hearing. It doesn't say Breyer's wrong, but it does restore the status quo. So as of tonight and this minute, those National Guardsmen have been, again, re-federalized, are under the control of the federal government.
And you know, that Judge Breyer opinion, as you mentioned, it wrote in that ruling that Trump did not satisfy the requirements that must be met to call in the National Guard. You mentioned that these protests are not a rebellion. When you look ahead, this is obviously a can kicked down the road, but at some point, some will have to assess the strength of the administration's case. How is it?
Well, I think his point is the most important, and when it goes to the Ninth Circuit and the Supreme Court, what is really going to be pivotal is, does the president just get deference to say it's a rebellion so the courts keep their hands off? What Breyer said is, the statute says whenever there's a rebellion, the president, etc. That means it's for the judges to say, is there or isn't there a rebellion? Just like, Laura, in the Alien Enemies Act, it's for the judges to say, is there an invasion? If that holds, I think Trump will lose. This doesn't rise to the level of historical rebellions for a number of reasons. If, however, the courts, or especially the U.S. Supreme Court, says, we don't get into this, we defer to whatever the president thinks, then Trump is going to win and have a real path to unreviewable power.
By the way, the administration was threatening to go right to the Supreme Court had this order not been paused in a hearing next week. But the
Right.
ruling that has been paused, it didn't specifically address the use of those, 700 or so Marines. Why not?
Because they're really the next step, Laura. And judges have to wait until there's really a battle. So, what he could do and seems poised to do, and Homan says, let's do right now, is bring the Marines in under the Insurrection Act. That's what he would need to invoke. And then they would really get to act like the traditions in America say should almost never happen. They would be regular law enforcement officers arresting, searching, seizing, and the like. But the administration hasn't done that yet. As of now, the Marines, it's actually unclear if they've even arrived in LA, but that part of the federal law enforcement presence is just not in play yet. All we have so far is the National Guard having been federalized. So that's why the judge didn't decide it.
And we know that that hearing is going to take place now on Tuesday. As you mentioned, the original ruling was going to be paused until tomorrow, Friday. That's now been delayed to review until Tuesday in full. So we have a little bit of ways to go to figure out, which means that that National Guard unit and beyond will remain throughout the weekend as well. Harry Litman,
That's
thank you
exactly
so much.
right.
Yeah.
Hang on to your hats. But that's right. We are now where we were before. And then, now remember, they can't do regular police work either. They are there to protect federal property and employees. But as of now, they can and must do that.
A resolution ahead, perhaps. Thank you so much. And